A note before we start. This book is not going to tell you that you're a bad parent. You're not. The fact that you picked this up or that someone who loves you sent it to you is proof that you care deeply. The parents who don't care don't look for books about how to do better. They don't feel the guilt. They don't notice the gap between where they are and where they want to be. You notice. That noticing is everything, but noticing isn't enough on its own. Because here's the thing most parenting books won't say directly. A lot of parents who love their kids profoundly, genuinely, overwhelmingly, find playing with them boring, tedious, sometimes nearly unbearable. And then they feel monstrous about it. And then the shame makes them avoid it. And then the avoidance makes the problem worse. This cycle is so common, it should have a clinical name. It doesn't. Instead, parents suffer through it quietly, scrolling their phone on the living room floor while their child narrates the 47th episode of an imaginary drama involving a stuffed bear, a toy truck, and 3 Legos. This book is about breaking that cycle, not by lying to yourself and pretending floor time is secretly amazing, but by understanding why it feels the way it does, what's actually happening in those moments, and how to change the experience so that the time you spend with your kid stops being something you endure and starts being something you actually want. It's written specifically for 9 to 5 employees, people who leave for work in the morning, come home tired in the evening, and have a narrow window of hours between dinner and bedtime to be a parent. People whose mental bandwidth has been depleted by a full day of meetings, decisions, commuting, and performing competence. People who sit down on the carpet at 6:30 p.m. with their child and feel the dual weight of genuine love and profound depletion simultaneously. There will be practical tools here, real techniques, specific scripts, honest examples, nothing fluffy, nothing that requires you to be a different kind of person than you already are. Let's begin. Chapter 1: The Pretending Problem. What it actually looks like. It's 6:45 p.m. on a Tuesday. You got home 40 minutes ago. You've changed out of your work clothes. You've answered the one urgent email you told yourself you'd answer and then stopped. Your 4-year-old is tugging your sleeve. Daddy, come play. You sit down on the floor. You pick up a plastic dinosaur. Your kid is talking, something about a volcano and a chase and a baby dinosaur who is scared. You make the dinosaur walk. You say roar twice. Your mind is still in the 3 p.m. meeting where your manager said something that's been looping in your head for 4 hours. You check your phone. Your kid doesn't seem to notice. Or maybe they do. This is the pretending problem. You are physically present. You are technically playing. But the version of you that showed up to that carpet is a shell, a physical placeholder performing the minimum required movements of parenting while the actual you is still somewhere else entirely. The pretending problem isn't laziness. It's not selfishness. It's the predictable outcome of a specific set of circumstances that almost every working parent in the developed world encounters daily. Understanding those circumstances is the first step to changing the experience. Why it happens. The why, correct person, why, the real reasons. Reason 1. Cognitive residue. When you leave work, physically leave, walk out the door, get in the car, you do not leave work. The brain keeps processing. Open loops from the day stay open. Unresolved tensions stay unresolved. The meeting that ended badly, the project with the unclear deadline, the colleague who said the thing, all of it persists in your working memory, consuming cognitive resources that are supposed to be available for the rest of your life. This is called cognitive residue, and it is the primary reason parents come home and feel present but aren't. You're in two places at once. Your body is on the carpet, your mind is still in the building, and that split attention state is exhausting, unsatisfying, and impossible to sustain in a way that feels meaningful. Reason 2. The depletion stack. A full workday depletes resources most people don't measure: social energy spent in meetings, decision-making bandwidth spent on tasks, emotional labor spent managing relationships, and attentional focus spent on screens. By 6 p.m., the average 9-to-5 worker has made hundreds of decisions, sat through hours of conversation, managed multiple interpersonal dynamics, and stared at a backlit screen for most of their waking hours. And then they come home to a child who is energetically their complete opposite. Kids in the evening are at peak energy. They've had a nap or a rested afternoon. They've been saving up their most imaginative, most demanding, most emotionally intense interactions for the parent who just walked through the door. The collision of a depleted adult and an energized child is physiologically and psychologically brutal. The adult is running on empty. The child is running on full. And the adult is expected to match the child's energy, not the other way around. Reason 3. The play mismatch. Here's the thing nobody says. Children's play is objectively not designed for adult enjoyment. A 4-year-old playing pretend is exploring narrative, social dynamics, cause and effect, and emotional scenarios at a developmental level that is fascinating from a distance, but genuinely repetitive and structurally simple up close. The 47th iteration of "you be the bad guy and I'll be the hero" is not engaging for an adult brain that processes complex information at work all day. This is not a failure of love. It's a mismatch of cognitive needs. Your child needs the repetition. It's how they learn, how they process, how they master concepts. You need novelty, complexity, or meaning to stay engaged. Most children's play doesn't provide those things by default, which means engagement has to be constructed rather than assumed. Reason 4, the guilt performance loop. Here's where the problem compounds. Parent feels guilty about not being present. Parent tries harder to perform presence. Performance without genuine engagement is exhausting and hollow. Parent becomes more depleted. Parent disengages more. Parent feels more guilty. Repeat. The harder you try to seem engaged without actually being engaged, the worse the whole experience becomes for you and subtly for your child, because children are remarkably good lie detectors. They may not be able to articulate it, but they feel the difference between a parent who is with them and a parent who is performing being with them. And that difference affects how they play, how they connect, and what they carry from the experience. The cost you're not calculating. Let's talk about what the pretending problem actually costs, beyond the obvious. First, it costs you the relationship itself, not in a dramatic clinical sense, but in the accumulated sense of moments that could have been connective and instead were transactional. Children build their internal model of their parent relationship from thousands of these small interactions. The quality of attention in those interactions, not just the quantity of time, is what shapes their felt sense of being loved, seen, and valued. Second, it costs you the experience of something genuinely worth having. Parents who break through the pretending problem consistently describe the same thing, that full present play with a child is one of the most restorative, joyful, and deeply satisfying experiences available to a human adult. Not every session, not from the first minute, but in a way that regular television, scrolling, or passive consumption simply cannot produce. Third, and this one stings, it costs your child something they can't get back. The window of time in which your child wants to play with you is shorter than it feels from inside it. Around ages 10 to 12, for most kids, the pull toward peers replaces the pull toward parents as the primary social orientation. The child who is currently tugging your sleeve and begging you to come play the dinosaur game will, in a few years, prefer almost any peer interaction over a floor session with mom or dad. You will miss it. Every parent does. The question is whether you let those years pass in the pretending mode or whether you figure out how to actually show up while the invitation is still open. Chapter 2, The Transition, Getting from Work You to Parent You. The gap nobody addresses. The single most underinvested moment in working parent life is the transition between leaving work and engaging with your child. Most parents walk in the door and go directly from work mode to parent mode with no buffer, no decompression, no deliberate switching of gears. They bring all of the cognitive residue, all of the depletion, all of the unprocessed emotions of the workday directly into the first interactions with their child. And then they wonder why those interactions feel hollow. You would not go directly from an intense workout into delicate surgical work without a cool down. You would not go from a heated argument directly into a negotiation without composing yourself first. The transition requires intention, and most parents give it none. The 15-minute buffer protocol. This is the single highest leverage change most working parents can make. It costs 15 minutes. It transforms the quality of everything that follows. The principle is simple. Before you engage with your child after work, take 15 minutes to deliberately decompress and close the loops from the day. Not to decompress with your phone, that doesn't work, and we'll get to why. To decompress with intention. Here's what that looks like in practice. The car protocol for commuters. If you commute by car, the last 15 minutes of your drive are your decompression window. Turn off the podcast. Turn off the radio. Drive in deliberate silence. Use this time to mentally close the workday by doing what psychologists call a completion review. Briefly acknowledging what you accomplished, what remains open, and what you're setting aside until tomorrow. You're not solving problems. You're telling your brain, these loops are acknowledged. They will be addressed at the appropriate time. They do not need to run in the background right now. If complete silence is uncomfortable, try this specific prompt. What are the 3 things I'm most glad I did today? Let your mind answer. This shifts your cognitive orientation from the stress residue of the day to a slightly more positive baseline, which is all you need to show up better for the next 2 hours. The train/bus protocol for transit commuters. If you commute on public transit, use the last stop or two before yours for the same purpose. Put the phone away. No reading, no scrolling, eyes forward or closed. One simple question: what do I want the next 2 hours to feel like? Not what you need to accomplish, what you want it to feel like. The question primes your brain with intention rather than residue. The walk-in protocol for remote workers and short commuters. For remote workers or people with very short commutes, the transition is harder because the physical separation between workspace and home space is compressed or absent. The most effective solution is a shutdown ritual. Our specific physical action that marks the end of work. Close the laptop, change your clothes, go outside for 5 minutes, even if just to stand on the porch. The ritual doesn't need to be elaborate, it needs to be consistent. The brain learns to associate the ritual with the transition, and eventually the act of performing the ritual triggers the state change you need. What not to do in the buffer. The buffer doesn't work if you fill it with stimulation. Most parents, given a 15-minute buffer, instinctively reach for their phones. This is counterproductive. Here's why. The brain's stress response, the activated state you're carrying home from work, is resolved not by distraction, but by processing. Scrolling social media is a form of distraction, not processing. It occupies the top layer of your conscious attention while the underlying stress residue continues to run. You emerge from 15 minutes of scrolling feeling roughly the same as when you started, just slightly more stimulated and slightly more disconnected. The activities that actually help: silence, gentle physical movement, the walk from the parking lot to the front door counts if you do it slowly and without your phone, specific journaling prompts, or a brief phone call with someone who makes you feel good. The goal is to lower arousal, not maintain or increase it. The greeting ritual. What happens in the first 60 seconds after you walk through the door sets the emotional tone for everything that follows. Most working parents walk in and are immediately assaulted with competing demands. The child wants attention. The other parent, if present, wants a debrief. The dog wants to go out. Dinner is or isn't ready. The mail is there. The house is whatever state it's in. Navigating this multi-front assault without a plan means whoever is most urgent wins, and whoever is most urgent is usually not your child, because children's needs manifest as noise and motion rather than clear requests. The result is your child gets the leftovers of your attention after the logistical urgent items have been addressed. Instead, make the greeting ritual with your child non-negotiable and first, every day, before the debrief, before the mail, before the dinner check. 30 seconds of full physical attention. Get down to their level, make eye contact, ask one genuine question about their day, and actually listen to the answer. Not "how was your day?" And a nod while you hang up your coat. Down at their level. Eye contact. genuine presence for 30 seconds. This sounds almost insultingly simple. The effect is disproportionate to the size of the action. Children who get a consistent, full attention greeting from a returning parent are measurably less demanding, less clingy, and more settled throughout the evening. The greeting fills a cup. A child whose cup was filled at greeting needs less constant refilling throughout the night. Chapter 3, Presence is a skill, not a feeling. The biggest misunderstanding about being present. Most parents believe that presence is something you either have or you don't in a given moment. You're either in a zone, engaged, connected, genuinely there, or you're not, and there's not much to be done about it. This is wrong. Presence is a skill. It is trainable. It has specific, learnable components, and like all skills, it degrades when not practiced and strengthens when deliberately developed. The reason this matters is that it shifts the question from, how do I feel more present, which implies you're waiting for a feeling to arrive, to what specific actions create presence, which gives you something to actually do. The three components of parental presence. Component 1, physical availability. This is the most obvious component and also the most violated. Physical availability means your body is positioned to engage, not to escape. You're on the floor or at their level, not on the couch looking down. You're in the space where play is happening, not adjacent to it. Your phone is not in your hand or visible on a surface nearby. The phone deserves specific attention here. Multiple studies have shown that even a phone placed face down on a table, not in use, not checked, reduces the quality of interpersonal interaction and reduces the other person's felt sense of being valued. Your child, who is keenly sensitive to your attention, registers the phone's presence as competition even when you're not looking at it. Put it in another room, physically, not in your pocket. Component 2, attentional focus. Attentional focus means your cognitive attention is directed at what your child is doing, saying, and feeling, not at the background noise of your own mental activity. This is the hard part. You can control where your body is. Controlling where your attention is requires active effort, especially when cognitive residue is high. The technique that works is called re-anchoring. Every time you notice your attention has drifted to the work meeting, to the to-do list, to the vague worry you've been carrying, you gently, non-judgmentally bring it back to what's in front of you. You don't berate yourself for drifting. You simply return. This is incidentally the same basic practice as meditation. It turns out being present with a toddler is its own form of mindfulness training. A practical anchor. When you notice your mind has wandered, pick one specific sensory detail about what your child is doing right now. What does their voice sound like as they narrate the game? What is their face doing? What does the toy feel like in your hand? Sensory anchoring pulls attention back from abstract mental activity to the present physical reality. Component 3, emotional openness. This is the component nobody talks about and the one that matters most for genuine enjoyment. Emotional openness means allowing yourself to actually feel what's happening in the moment, the child's delight, their frustration, their silliness, their intensity, rather than observing it from behind a glass wall of adult detachment. Most depleted parents sit in a state of emotional containment during play. They're managing their feelings rather than experiencing them. They're aware of the guilt, the boredom, the love, the irritation all at once. And they're managing all of it simultaneously. The management takes energy. The management prevents connection. The management is what makes the experience feel like work. Emotional openness is the willingness to drop the management and actually feel the play, to let the child's laughter land as funny, to let the imaginative scenario catch your interest genuinely, to feel the warmth of their small body leaning against yours without immediately cataloging everything else you need to do tonight. This is harder than it sounds. It requires a degree of safety, the feeling that it's okay to not be in control of your emotional state for the next 20 minutes. But the payoff is that the experience stops being something you're observing and starts being something you're having. The phone problem, a frank discussion. Let's not be coy about this because it's too important. Smartphone use during family time is the single greatest structural impediment to parental presence in modern life, and almost every parent who has it as a habit underestimates its effect by about half. Here's what's actually happening when you scroll your phone while your child plays nearby. Your child is building their model of what attention feels like from you every time you're physically present but attentionally absent. Looking at your phone, checking notifications, responding to messages, they are receiving the signal that the device in your hand is more interesting than they are. Children internalize this, not as a cognitive conclusion, but as a felt reality. The parents who are most shocked when their teenage child won't put down their phone are often the parents whose children never saw them put down theirs. The solution is not complicated, but it requires commitment. When you are in designated playtime with your child, your phone is not in the room, not face down on the coffee table, not on the kitchen counter 20 feet away. In another room, on silent. This single physical change removes the temptation, removes the competition, and removes the child's background awareness that the device exists as an alternative to them. But what if there's an emergency? There almost never is. And if there is, it will find you. The number of genuine emergencies that occur during the 90 minutes between dinner and bedtime that require your immediate response is vanishingly small compared to the number of times parents have convinced themselves of this to justify the habit. Chapter 4. The Play Itself. Practical Techniques for Real Engagement. Follow the child. The foundational principle of engaging children's play, and the one that child psychologists and play therapists have understood for decades, but that almost no parenting book for regular parents actually explains, is this: let the child lead. This sounds obvious. In practice, most adult-supervised play involves the adult subtly steering, redirecting, simplifying, or narrating in a way that reflects the adult's preferences rather than the child's. We make the game faster, or we introduce a plot that makes more logical sense, or we suggest the more fun option, or we gently move toward closure because we can feel our patience running thin. Child-led play works differently. The child sets the scenario. The child assigns the roles. The child determines the pace and direction of the narrative. The adult's job is to serve the story the child is telling, not to co-author it as an equal. This is actually easier than adult-led play once you understand it, because you don't have to generate ideas, maintain coherent narrative, or manage the experience. You just have to respond. The child creates the world, you inhabit it. The child creates the problem, you react to it. The child creates the resolution, you celebrate it. The practical instruction: the next time you sit down to play, start with this phrase: "What are we playing?" And then whatever they say yes. Don't negotiate. Don't modify. Don't introduce your preferred game. Say yes to the 47th dinosaur chase if that's what they want. But say yes with genuine commitment rather than hollow compliance. The character strategy. One of the most effective techniques for getting out of your own head and into genuine play is to fully commit to a character. Not a half-hearted performance of a character while you remain self-consciously adult. A genuine, committed character with a voice, a personality, a set of reactions, and a consistent presence in the world your child has created. And here's why this works neurologically. When you take on a character, you create a layer of narrative distance between your depleted adult self and the play activity. You're not a tired parent sitting on the floor. Nah, you're the grumpy troll who is actually terrified of bridges. The troll has different problems than you do. The troll's concerns are fully contained in the game world, and in inhabiting the troll, you temporarily step out of the background noise of your actual life and into a different cognitive space. This is the same mechanism that makes actors describe performance as restorative rather than depleting, despite it being physically and mentally demanding. The cognitive shift of inhabiting a character provides relief from the self. Playing with your child is one of the few contexts in adult life where you have explicit permission to do this completely without self-consciousness, without judgment. Practical tips for character commitment. Give the character a consistent, distinct voice, even a silly one. Give it one personality trait that plays against your own. If you're serious, make the character dramatic and silly. If you're anxious, make the character ridiculously overconfident. Let the character be consistently bad at one thing and let your child win because of it. The character's failure creates their success, and their success creates their delight. And their delight is genuinely contagious when you're actually in the game rather than watching from outside. The curiosity reset. Boredom in child's play almost always comes from familiarity. You've played this game before. You know where it goes. Your brain has predicted the outcome and disengaged from the experience because the experience holds no surprises. The curiosity reset is the practice of deliberately approaching a familiar play scenario as if you've never seen it before, with the genuine intent to discover something new. This is not a lie you tell yourself. It's a perceptual choice, and it's a legitimate one, because your child is never playing the exact same game twice, even if it looks the same from the outside. The narrative choices they make, the emotional content they explore, the problems they create and solve, these are never identical. The game is always new for them. The familiarity is a product of your own categorical thinking. In practice, when you sit down to the dinosaur game again, instead of thinking, "Here we go, I know how this ends," try asking yourself a genuine question about what's about to happen. Not sarcastically, Genuinely. I wonder what problem she's going to introduce today. I wonder if he'll resolve it the same way as last time. I wonder what this scenario is actually about for him. The question creates a small opening for actual interest. And actual interest, even tiny amounts of it, changes the entire quality of your engagement. Parallel play, the underrated option. There is a form of play that is enormously underutilized by tired parents, and it happens to be the most psychologically restorative option available: parallel play. Parallel play is when you and your child are doing different things in the same space, in comfortable proximity, with occasional overlap. You're reading, they're building with blocks, you're drawing, they're coloring, you're working on a puzzle, they're playing with clay. Parallel play has a specific value for depleted parents because it provides the physical presence and emotional availability that children need. The sense of, my parent is here and interested in what I'm doing. Without requiring the sustained cognitive engagement that full interactive play demands. The critical element that makes parallel play meaningful rather than absent: genuine interest, not the performance of interest. Every few minutes, look up and comment specifically on what your child is doing. Not good job, that's empty. Something specific. That tower is really tall. How are you keeping it from falling? Or, your dinosaur's face looks so angry. What's he thinking? The specific comment shows you've actually been watching, that you've actually been paying attention, that their work matters to you enough to notice its details. For exhausted 9 to 5 parents, parallel play 2 or 3 evenings a week paired with fully engaged interactive play on the other evenings is a sustainable rhythm. It's better than performing engagement every night and burning out by Wednesday. The 20-minute rule. Research on parent-child play consistently shows something counterintuitive. It's not the total amount of time spent playing that predicts children's developmental outcomes and felt sense of parental connection. It's the quality and consistency of shorter, fully present sessions. 20 minutes of genuinely engaged, fully present play produces better outcomes than 90 minutes of distracted, phone-interrupted, half-present supervision. This is liberating information if you use it correctly. You don't need to be in full engagement mode all evening. You need 20 to 30 minutes of genuine, phones away, character-committed, child-led, fully present play. That is the minimum viable dose of real connection. Everything else, the parallel play, the bedtime routine, the shared dinner, adds to it, but doesn't replace the need for that core session. The practical application: every evening, before you turn on the television, before dinner if timing allows, or immediately after, identify your 20-minute window and treat it as a non-negotiable appointment, not, let's see how the evening unfolds. A specific 20-minute slot, phone in another room, child in charge of the game. Commit to it like you'd commit to a work meeting. What you'll discover, if you do this consistently, is that the 20 minutes usually stretches, not always. Some evenings you hit 20 minutes and you're genuinely done, and that's okay. But often, when the transition into play was deliberate and the first 5 minutes were genuinely engaged, something shifts. The residue fades. The child's energy becomes less overwhelming and more infectious. The game actually gets interesting. And the 20 minutes becomes 40, not because you forced it, but because you actually wanted to keep going. Chapter 5. Age-specific strategies. What works at each stage. Babies and toddlers, ages 0 to 2. The sensory window. Play with babies and very young toddlers is the stage that most depleted parents find either profoundly sweet or profoundly boring, depending on their temperament, with very little middle ground. There's no narrative. There's no back and forth. There's limited reciprocity. Just a small creature responding to stimulation. The key to genuine engagement at this stage is understanding what's actually happening developmentally. A baby playing peekaboo is not playing a trivial game. They are learning that objects and people continue to exist when they can't be seen. One of the fundamental cognitive milestones of human development. The delight on their face when you reappear is the literal joy of a major intellectual discovery being confirmed for the 100th time. When you know what the game means to them, the game changes. Practical approaches for this age group. Narrate everything you do together in a calm, engaged voice. Not a performance, a genuine running commentary. Now we're putting the blue block on top. Now we're knocking it over. Look at that. It fell. This builds language faster than almost any other intervention. Do the same thing again and again. Repetition at this age is developmental gold, not tedium. Make the same face, the same sound, the same movement, and watch the recognition and delight that comes from mastery and prediction. For very tired parents with infants, floor time with a baby doesn't require your active performance every second. Laying on your back next to a baby who is doing tummy time, occasionally making faces and sounds, counts as engaged play. The presence is what matters. The occasional genuine interaction is what matters. Continuous active entertainment is not the standard. Ages 3 to 5. The imagination explosion. This is the stage that many parents find most challenging because it's simultaneously the most demanding. Children this age have extremely specific, often contradictory expectations for how play should unfold. And the most potentially joyful, the imaginative richness they bring to play is genuinely extraordinary if you let yourself into it. The key insight for this age: you're not playing pretend. You are participating in their reality. For a 3 to 5-year-old, the imaginary scenario is not make-believe. It is their primary reality in that moment, more real and more important than the physical room you're sitting in. Your level of commitment to that reality determines the quality of the entire experience. When a 4-year-old tells you the floor is lava, they are not asking you to acknowledge that they've created a fun game. They are inviting you into a world where the floor is genuinely dangerous and the furniture is the only safe ground. The parent who steps over the lava with exaggerated care, with genuine alarm on their face, with actual urgency in their movement, that parent is in the game. The parent who says, okay, the floor is lava, and half steps around it while checking their watch, that parent is outside the game, and the child feels the difference immediately. Specific example: your 5-year-old tells you that you're a wizard who has lost all their magic and needs to find the magic crystals to get it back. The crystals are the magnets on the refrigerator. The bad guys are the sofa cushions. Don't ask. This scenario could feel stupid, Or it could be the setup for 15 minutes of you crawling desperately toward the refrigerator, dramatically dodging the evil sofa cushions, gasping with exhausted wizard energy, while your 5-year-old laughs so hard they fall over. The difference between those two experiences is your decision to commit. Practical tips for the imagination explosion age. Ask to be given a role rather than assigning yourself one. What am I in this game? And commit to whatever they say. Accept every plot development, however illogical. If the dinosaur can suddenly fly, the dinosaur can suddenly fly. Find that interesting rather than inconsistent. Use your character to fail strategically. The bad guy who keeps almost catching the hero and then hilariously falling down creates more joy than a competent villain. Ages 6 to 9, the competence years. At this age, play begins to shift. Rules matter. Winning matters, sometimes intensely, sometimes not at all, depending on the day. Skill is observable. Your child can beat you at things now or desperately wants to. The imaginary worlds don't disappear, but they become more internally consistent, more persistent across sessions, and often more elaborate. The key dynamic to understand at this stage, your child is testing and building competence constantly. Every game is partly about whether they're good enough, smart enough, skilled enough. Your role in play has evolved from narrative collaborator to something more like a sparring partner, present enough to create challenge, gracious enough to let them win in meaningful ways, honest enough not to let them win in hollow ways. The trap at this age is letting play degrade into you watching them play. Screen games, elaborate solo building projects, sports practice in the backyard. These are real activities, and your presence genuinely matters to them even when your participation is limited. But presence as watching is not the same as presence as participating. When possible, find the version of their activity that includes you. Play the video game with them and be genuinely bad at it, and find that funny. Build the section of the Lego set they hand you and ask genuine questions about the decisions they're making. Kick the ball back and actually try to save their shots. Board games come into their own at this age and are one of the most underused tools available to tired parents because they provide structure, clear engagement cues, genuine competition, and a built-in time limit. Over del over e, all tripper over cho, over shower per. All which remove the cognitive load of having to generate and sustain play from scratch. A note on losing deliberately. This is a contested area. The conventional wisdom says, let kids win sometimes. The more useful truth is, let kids win when they earn it, and be genuinely enthusiastic about their competence when they do. A child who wins because the parent subtly made a mistake doesn't feel the full satisfaction of victory. A child who wins because they genuinely outmaneuvered you, and you genuinely respond to that with real surprise and real respect. Carry something different from that win. At this age, your authentic reaction to their genuine capability is one of the most powerful things you can give them. Ages 10 to 12, the edge of the window. This is the stage that passes fastest and hurts most in retrospect. Your child still wants to play with you. They still want your time, but they're beginning to be embarrassed about wanting it, so they express it sideways as requests to watch something together, play a game together, come see something they're doing. They won't say, Daddy, come play anymore. They'll say, do you want to watch this video? Or can you help me with this? Or just, what are you doing tonight? If you miss the translation, you miss the invitation. The practical principle for this age, say yes to every sideways invitation. Not every single one, every time, regardless of your own needs, but with a strong default of yes. When a 10-year-old asks if you want to watch them play their video game, they are asking if you're interested in their world. When an 11-year-old wants to show you a meme they found funny, they are asking if you share their sense of humor. When a 12-year-old wants you to come to their room and just sit there while they draw, they are asking if your presence is something they can count on. Answer yes. Sit there. Be interested. Ask one real question and listen to the whole answer. The window is closing. The invitation is still open. Show up for it now. Chapter 6, The Energy Problem. Managing yourself so you can show up. You can't pour from an empty cup, but you can make the cup less empty. Every parenting book mentions this metaphor. Almost none of them explain how to actually do it for a person who works full-time and doesn't have the luxury of a spa afternoon or a long weekend away. For the 9 to 5 parent, energy management is not about grand self-care gestures. It's about micro-recoveries, small insertions of restoration throughout the day that prevent the depletion from becoming total by the time you walk through the front door. Micro-recovery strategies for the workday. The lunch reset. If you eat lunch at your desk, you are not recovering at lunch. You are extending the depletion. Eating at your desk while working means your brain gets no genuine break between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. That's 8 consecutive hours of output with no recovery. By 6 p.m., you have nothing left. Eating lunch away from your desk, even just in a different room, even for 15 minutes, even without leaving the building, provides measurable cognitive recovery. Not enough to fully restore depleted resources, but enough to raise your baseline by the evening. Over the course of a week, the difference between desk lunches and away lunches is significant in terms of your evening energy and your evening mood. The 2-minute outside window, natural light, and brief outdoor exposure are among the most effective and most underused cognitive recovery tools available. 2 minutes outside, standing in natural light, not on your phone, not checking anything. Resets cortisol, improves alertness, and provides a brief state change that artificial environments cannot replicate. Once in the morning and once in the afternoon is enough to measurably improve your afternoon and evening functioning. The selective boundary. For many 9 to 5 employees, the workday bleeds into the commute, bleeds into the evening via email and messaging. Every notification that arrives after hours extends the cognitive load of the workday and prevents the decompression that evening parenting requires. The practical solution is a hard stop. Email and work messaging do not get checked after a specific time, say 6 p.m., not reduced, stopped. The world will not end. The urgent thing will find another way to reach you, and your children will have the version of you that isn't half in the office. The evening energy budget. Here's a concept that changes how working parents think about their evenings. You have an energy budget. It's not unlimited. It refills partially during sleep and partially during the day's micro recoveries. But there's a ceiling on how much is available on any given weeknight. The mistake most parents make is spending that budget reactively on whatever demands it first, rather than allocating it intentionally. The evening energy budget gets spent on scrolling, on chores that could wait, on adult conversations that are important but not urgent, on low-value television. And by the time the child's bedtime arrives, the parent has nothing left for the thing that matters most. Try this reframe. Your child gets first access to your evening energy, not last. Not all of it. You need some for your partner, some for yourself, some for the basic maintenance of life. But the dedicated playtime happens when your energy is at its highest point of the evening, not its lowest. For most people, that means directly after the decompression buffer, before dinner if possible, or immediately after dinner, before the evening slide begins. What actually restores you? For depleted working parents, the activities that actually restore energy are often counterintuitive. Most people think rest means passivity, lying on the couch, watching something. This is a low-grade restoration at best. The activities that produce genuine recovery include physical movement, even 15 minutes of brisk walking, genuine social connection, meaningful conversation with someone you love, creative engagement, anything that produces something rather than consuming something, time in natural settings, and sleep. Notably absent from that list, social media, news consumption, passive television, online shopping. These activities are not rest. They are stimulation that provides a brief break from one type of cognitive load while creating a different type. They leave you feeling more depleted, not less, over time. The implication for parents: if you use the hour after the kids are in bed for genuine recovery, a short walk, a conversation with your partner without phones, 15 minutes of something creative, you'll come to the next evening with more in the tank. If you use it for scrolling until you fall asleep, you won't. Chapter 7, The Guilt, What to Do with It. A frank assessment. Parental guilt about play is one of the most universally experienced and least usefully discussed emotions in modern parenting. It's everywhere. Every parent has it. Almost no resource explains what to actually do with it. Here's the honest assessment of parental play guilt. Some of it is useful signal, and some of it is useless noise, and they're extremely difficult to tell apart from the inside. The useful signal part, guilt, that is telling you a genuine behavioral pattern has gone on too long and needs to change. The parent who has been phone scrolling on the carpet for 6 months while their child plays alone is experiencing guilt that is accurately calibrated to a real problem. That guilt is worth listening to. It's pointing at something that needs to change. The useless noise part, guilt that arrives regardless of the reality of the situation, that tells you you're not doing enough, even when you've just done 45 minutes of fully engaged floor play, that compares your parenting to idealized standards nobody meets, that persists even when your child is genuinely thriving. This guilt is not signal, it's static. And acting on static, intensifying your performance, doubling down on martyrdom, sacrificing your own basic needs in response to guilt that isn't pointing at anything real, does not make you a better parent. The practical question is, how do you distinguish the signal from the static? The signal versus static test. Ask yourself this question honestly. If I look at the last 7 days, was there a pattern of genuine engagement with my child, or was there consistent avoidance, distraction, and presence in body only? If the honest answer is consistent avoidance, the guilt is signal. Use it. Make a change. Start with the 20-minute protocol and build from there. If the honest answer is genuine engagement most days, with some rough evenings and imperfect moments, the guilt is static. It is not pointing at a real behavioral problem. It is pointing at the impossibly high standard most modern parents hold themselves to, a standard that has no basis in what children actually need to thrive. Children do not need perfect presence. They do not need continuous engagement. They do not need a parent who is delightfully enthusiastic about every imaginary game every evening without fail. They need a parent who is reliably there, who shows up genuinely often enough that they feel secure, who responds to them as a person with real curiosity and real warmth when they do engage. The bar is lower than your guilt suggests. Meeting it consistently is what matters. The apology that actually helps. For evenings when you genuinely were checked out, when the phone was out, when you were physically present but mentally absent, when you gave your child the leftover version of yourself, there is something more useful than private guilt. Say something to them, not a formal apology with explanation and processing, something simple and direct. Hey, I feel like I wasn't really with you tonight. I'm sorry for that. Tomorrow I want to do better. And then do better. Children receive these acknowledgments differently than adults expect. They don't hold them as evidence of parental failure. They receive them as evidence of parental honesty. And honesty is the foundation of the trust that makes the relationship work. A parent who can say, "I wasn't my best tonight," is a parent their child can talk to about hard things. The acknowledgement costs you almost nothing and builds something that lasts. In Chapter 8, Special Scenarios, the hard situations. When you're in a fight with your partner, adult relational conflict is one of the most significant disruptors of parental presence. When there's unresolved tension between co-parents, the emotional background noise in the home is loud enough to drown out almost everything else. Children feel it acutely. Parents often can't access genuine joy and play because the tension is occupying the emotional foreground. The practical guidance here is simple but hard. Do not let adult conflict colonize children's time. This means making an explicit agreement with your partner in advance that certain times, dinner, playtime, bedtime, routine, are adult conflict-free zones by mutual choice, not because the conflict doesn't matter, but because the children's window is finite and the conflict can be addressed after bedtime. This is not avoidance. This is scheduling. The conflict gets its dedicated time. The children get theirs. The two don't compete. When your child wants to play something you genuinely dislike, every parent has one, the game that makes your skin crawl. For some, it's the never-ending, narrated pretend drama. For some, it's the repetitive physical game that requires them to make the same movement 500 times. For some, it's a specific toy, slime, kinetic sand, or any game that involves glitter. You don't have to pretend these are fine. You can have an honest, age-appropriate conversation about preferences. I'm not great at sitting still for long pretend games. What if we play for 15 minutes and then do something else together? Children, especially over age 5, are more capable of negotiating play preferences than parents expect. They don't need you to love everything they love. They need you to show up for what they love sometimes and be honest when you need to redirect. What they cannot tolerate, what produces the damage that parents fear, is the pretend enthusiasm, the hollow, "Oh wow, that's so fun," while your face says the opposite. Children read faces, not words. The mismatch between your verbal performance and your actual affect creates confusion and subtle distrust. Honest negotiation is better than false enthusiasm every time. Single parent evenings. When you're doing it alone. For single parents or for parents whose partner travels or works late, the evenings have a specific texture of difficulty. There's no tag out available. The full weight of the transition, the play, the dinner, the bedtime routine, all of it rests on one person who has just completed a full workday. The most important reframe for single parent evenings: lower the standard, raise the quality. You cannot maintain the same level of engagement over a 4-hour evening alone that two parents could maintain sharing the load. So don't try. Identify the one concentrated window of genuine presence, the 20-minute protocol done fully, and accept that the rest of the evening will be more functional than connected. The dinner and the bath and the stories can be good and loving without being the peak of engagement. The peak gets its window, and that window gets protected. One additional technique for single-parent exhaustion: let your child help with the things you need to do. Cooking dinner with a child underfoot is objectively harder than cooking dinner alone. It is also, from the child's perspective, a form of play and inclusion that counts as quality time. Giving them the job of stirring or washing vegetables or sorting things or laying the table, these are parallel activity connection moments. They don't require you to be in full play mode. They require you to be in full presence mode, which is accessible even when you're tired, when your child is being difficult. There are evenings when play doesn't work, not because you're depleted, but because your child is difficult, demanding, whiny, easily upset, resistant to everything, impossible to satisfy. These evenings are their own special category of exhaustion. The useful insight here is developmental. Children who come home from school or daycare in a state of maximum behavioral difficulty are almost always children who have been regulating themselves all day in an environment that required it. Sitting still, following rules, managing peer dynamics, controlling impulses. The difficult behavior at home is the decompression from that effort. You're getting the released version of everything they held together all day. This doesn't make it easier to deal with, but it changes what the help looks like. A child in decompression mode needs co-regulation more than they need play. What that looks like practically: lower demands, increase physical closeness, reduce stimulation. Sit with them quietly. Read to them. Let them lie against you while you watch something calm together. This is not the high engagement play mode. It's the secure base mode. And it's what some evenings genuinely call for. The mistake is responding to difficult evening behavior by increasing demands or withdrawing engagement. The child who is most difficult to be with is usually the child who most needs your sustained, calm, undramatic presence. Not your entertainment, your steadiness. Chapter 9, The Long Game, Building a Play Relationship That Lasts. Creating your family's play identity. Beyond individual sessions, the parents who maintain genuine connection with their children across years tend to have something that parents who struggle with presence often lack: shared activities that belong to their relationship. Not generic family time, specific things that are yours, the evening walk that you always take together, the specific card game that only you two play with the made-up rules nobody else knows, the Saturday morning pancake tradition where the kid gets to choose ridiculous toppings, the bedtime storytelling ritual where you always pick up the story where you left off. These shared activities do several important things. They create a predictable, reliable context for connection that doesn't require energy to generate from scratch each evening. They build a shared identity. We are the people who do this together. That becomes one of the anchors of your relationship. And they create a history, a set of memories and references and private jokes that deepens the relationship over time in ways that no single perfect play session could. Building these shared activities requires intention, not talent. Pick one thing, do it consistently, let it become yours. Letting your kids into your world. One of the most underused strategies for genuine parent-child connection, especially as children get older, is letting them into your actual life rather than exclusively entering theirs. This means showing them what you're genuinely interested in, not lecturing, not performing, genuinely showing. The parent who loves cooking and brings the child into the kitchen, not as a helper, but as a fellow learner, and you're trying to figure out how this sauce works, want to experiment with me, creates a different quality of connection than the parent who plays the child's game. Because now the child gets to see the adult as a full person with real interests, real curiosity, real areas of incompetence. That humanization of the parent is one of the greatest gifts you can give. Practically, one evening a week, instead of entering their world, invite them into yours. Show them what you're reading. Let them sit with you while you do a hobby and explain what you're doing. Take them somewhere connected to something you love. The connection that forms when a child realizes their parent has passions, not just jobs, is qualitatively different from the connection that forms in pure play mode, repairing the relationship when it's been neglected. For parents reading this who recognize that the pretending problem has been operating for months or years, who see their child's quiet acceptance of their distracted presence and feel the weight of that, here's the most important thing. It is not too late. The relationship is not damaged beyond recovery. Children are remarkably resilient and remarkably forgiving of parents who genuinely change. But change needs to be real, not announced. Don't sit your child down and explain that you're going to be more present from now on. Just be more present. Children don't need the declaration. They need the experience. They'll notice the phone disappeared. They'll notice you got down on the floor. They'll notice the questions got more specific and the listening got more real. They'll test it with demanding behavior, with emotional intensity, sometimes with anger at the implicit acknowledgement that things were different before. Let them test it. Keep showing up anyway. The trust rebuilds from the bottom up, one genuine session at a time. Chapter 10. Your Practical Plan. Starting this week. The Week 1 Protocol. Everything in this book is actionable starting today. Here is a minimal first week protocol that requires no special preparation, no extra time, and no dramatic life reorganization. Day 1. The transition. Identify your transition between work and home. Commit to 15 minutes of deliberate decompression before engaging with your child. If you drive the car, if you transit, the last stop. If you work from home, a specific shutdown ritual. Do it once. See what happens to the first interaction. Day 2, the phone. Put your phone in another room for the period between arriving home and your child's bedtime, just one evening. Notice what it's like. Notice what your child is like. Day 3, the greeting. When you arrive home before anything else, find your child, get to their level, make eye contact, and ask one specific question about their day. Not, how was your day? Something specific. Did anything funny happen today? Or what's one thing you made at school? And then listen to the complete answer. Day 4, the 20 minutes. Commit to 20 minutes of fully present, child-led play. Phone in another room. You're in the game. Let them assign your role. Say yes to whatever they say. Commit to a character if you can. Set a timer if it helps. Day 5, the character. Today during play, commit fully to a character with a voice, a personality, and one consistent flaw. Be the wizard who keeps losing their spell book. Be the dinosaur who's terrified of tiny things. Be the customer who always gets the order wrong. Let your child correct you, help you, rescue you. Let their delight be real. Day 6, the parallel. Tonight, try parallel play. Sit near your child while each of you does something independent. Every 3 to 5 minutes, comment specifically on what they're doing. Not good job, something real. Then continue your own activity. Day 7, the review. At the end of the week, notice, was there at least one session this week where you genuinely forgot to be bored? Where something your child did caught your actual attention, where the 20 minutes went longer than intended because you actually wanted to keep going. That moment is the data. It tells you what you're capable of when the conditions are right. The work from here is making the conditions right more often. The 12 principles, a reference card. 1. Presence is a skill, not a feeling. It can be built deliberately. 2. Transition before you engage. 15 minutes of decompression changes everything that follows. 3. Your phone is the primary structural barrier to genuine presence. Put it in another room. 4. Follow the child. Let them lead. Your job is to inhabit their world, not improve it. 5. Commit to a character. The cognitive shift of inhabiting a role releases you from self-consciousness. 6. The 20-minute fully present session is the minimum viable dose of real connection. 7. Parallel play is legitimate connection. Specific comments beat generic praise every time. 8. Boredom is predictability. Curiosity resets the experience. Approach the familiar game as if it's new. 9. Children need your genuine reaction, not your performance of enthusiasm. 10. The window is shorter than it feels. The child who wants to play with you today will not always. 11. Repair is possible. If you've been absent, just start showing up. No announcement needed. 12. The goal is not perfection. It is genuine often enough that your child feels it. Conclusion: they already know. Here is something that should stay with you after you finish this book. Your child already knows the difference. They can't articulate it. They couldn't explain it if you asked. But they know at some level beneath language whether the parent who sat with them last night was really there or was somewhere else while their body occupied the space. They know whether the laugh was real or performed. They know whether the question was genuine or obligatory. Children are the most accurate readers of adult emotional reality that exist. They have to be. Their survival depends on understanding the people who care for them, which means the performance isn't working anyway. The hollow, "that's so cool," and the distracted, and the eyes that keep drifting back to the phone, these don't go unregistered. They go into the ledger. Not maliciously, not consciously, just quietly, the way all childhood experience goes in. The good news is the reverse is also true. The moments of genuine presence, the laugh that surprised you, the question you asked because you were actually curious, the moment you forgot to check the time because the game got interesting, those go into, permanently, they go into the child's felt sense of who their parent is and what their parent thinks of them. They are the material from which their internal model of love and security is built. You don't need to be a perfect parent. You don't need to love every game. You don't need to perform enthusiasm you don't feel or stay longer than your nervous system can honestly manage. You need to show up genuinely for enough of it that the pattern is undeniable, that the weight of the evidence says, this parent was actually here. This parent actually saw me. This parent actually wanted to be in this room, on this floor, in this game, with me. That is what a child carries into adulthood. Not the number of hours, not the Pinterest perfect activities, not the enrichment programs, or the organized play dates, or the expensive vacations. The felt sense that they were worth showing up for. You can give them that. You're already trying. Start with 15 minutes of decompression in the car. Put the phone in the other room. Get down on the floor. Say, "What are we playing?" and mean it. That's the whole thing. Show up. The most expensive gift you can give a child costs nothing except your undivided attention, which is, of course, the most expensive thing most adults have.